In 1984, two men were shot dead in a Rochester bar. The man convicted of killing them spent 37 years in prison. He never did it. There was no DNA, no fingerprint, no witness. The district attorney asked the court to throw the case out. The judge refused and sent it to a jury anyway. Everything that took the next 37 years of Michael Rhynes' life came from two men in jail cells. It was a Thursday night, the 27th of September 1984. Rico's bar sat on Lexington Avenue in a working-class corner of Rochester, New York, the kind of neighborhood tavern where the same faces came in after their shifts and nobody locked the world out. That night, two men were inside who would not leave alive. Enrico Ferrari, known to everyone as Rico, the man whose name was on the door, and Robert Hurysz, there like anyone else, on an ordinary night out. Then someone came in with a gun. It was a robbery. Shots were fired, and both men died on the floor of that bar. And then the people who did it ran out the door into the city, and as it would turn out, into nothing. They were never caught. They took no money with them. All they left behind were two bodies and a case with no answers. A double murder in a public place should leave a trail, a gun, a fingerprint, a face someone recognized. Detectives in Rochester went looking for all of it. They did not find it. No murder weapon tied to a suspect. No fingerprints that closed the case, and no eyewitness who could stand up and say, with certainty, that is the man who walked in and started shooting. Witnesses who did see the gunman described them one way. The man the system would eventually convict did not match that description at all. Months passed, the bar reopened, the city moved on, and the murders of Rico Ferrari and Robert Hurysz sat exactly where they had been the morning after. Unsolved, with a name attached to no one. For a detective, an unsolved double homicide is a weight that does not lift. The pressure to close it, from the public, from the department, from inside, only grows. And then finally, a name surfaced. Not from the crime scene, not from a witness on Lexington Avenue, from a jail. Here is the part of this story that is hardest to believe, and it is true. By the time the case reached a courtroom, the district attorney's own office did not think it could win. The evidence was too thin. There was no physical proof, so the prosecution did something prosecutors almost never do. Their job, their entire institutional reflex, is to push cases forward, to seek the conviction. Instead, this office went before the judge and asked for the case to be dismissed. The district attorney, Rhynes, looked at what he actually had in his hands and concluded it was not enough to put a man on trial for a double murder. That is an extraordinary thing for a prosecutor to admit out loud, and the judge said no. The court denied the motion to dismiss and ordered the case to go forward, to a jury, to a verdict, to a sentence. The one official whose job was to prove Michael Rhynes guilty had said the evidence wasn't there, and the trial happened anyway. What the trial used instead of evidence was testimony. Specifically, the testimony of two men who were already locked up, jailhouse informants, who told the court that Michael Rhynes had confessed the murders to them behind bars. Their names were Joe Smith and Roy Timmons. Neither had been at Rico's bar. Neither had seen the shooting. What they had was a story. That Rhynes, a man they were locked up near, had simply told them he did it. There was nothing to check it against. No recording, no corroboration. Just two voices from inside a jail. It is the oldest and most dangerous currency in a courtroom. A man facing his own charges suddenly remembers that someone else confessed and offers it up in exchange for a lighter road of his own. The jury was asked to take two men like that at their word, and they did. In 1986, Michael Rhynes went on trial for the murders of Rico Ferrari and Robert Hurysz. The case against him had no weapon, no fingerprint, no eyewitness, and a prosecution that had tried to walk away from it. What it had was 2 jailhouse informants and a courtroom willing to listen. It was enough. 2 men who had never been to Rico's bar, who had not seen the shooting, who stood to gain something for their words were enough. The jury found Michael Rhynes guilty of 4 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted robbery. The judge handed down a sentence that would keep him in prison for the rest of any normal life. There was no physical thread connecting him to that bar on that night, and it did not matter. The story had been told, and the verdict followed it. Michael Rhynes was 25 years old. He walked into the New York prison system a young man, convicted of a double murder built entirely out of words. And somewhere out in the world, the people who actually fired those shots read about his conviction and understood they were safe. What followed was 37 years, most of them at Attica, a name that carries its own weight in American prisons. Michael Rhynes was in his 20s when the gate closed behind him. He would be in his 60s before it opened again. Through all of it, he said the same thing he had said at the start. He was not there. He did not do it. And he was not the only one who came to doubt the case. At one point, only a couple of years after the trial, one of the informants who had testified against him wrote to the district attorney's office, trying to take it back. The letter went unanswered. The conviction held, and the years kept going. Reagan, then Bush, then Clinton, then a new century. Presidents came and went. The world rebuilt itself twice over, and Michael Rhynes stayed exactly where the system had put him. Decade after decade, while the truth sat in plain sight, in the memory of 2 men who knew exactly what they had done. The truth came back the same way the lie had, from the 2 men who told it. After decades, Joe Smith and Roy Timmons were brought back to a courtroom, and under oath, both of them recanted. They did not just say they had been mistaken, they explained how it had worked. They said the details they had testified to were not things Michael Rhynes had told them. They were things that had been fed to them by detectives and by the prosecutor's office. They had been given a story and told what to say, and they had said it. In exchange, they had hoped for lighter sentences of their own. Strip those 2 men out of the trial, and there is nothing left. No weapon, no print, no witness, and now no confession. The entire case against Michael Rhynes had been a thing that 2 men in jail cells agreed to say. In December of 2023, Justice Stephen Miller looked at what was left of the case against Michael Rhynes and found there was no direct evidence of his guilt at all. No DNA, no eyewitnesses, no admissions. He vacated the conviction. On the 19th of December 2023, Michael Rhynes walked out of Attica, a free man, 62 years old. He had gone in at 25. A few weeks later, the indictment was formally dismissed and sealed. The prosecution conceded there was not enough to try him again. After 37 years, the state of New York was done calling him a murderer. He had lost the entire middle of his life, his 20s, his 30s, his 40s, his 50s, to a crime he had no part in. The years a person builds a career, raises children, becomes who they are going to be. All of it spent inside for a story 2 strangers told. There is no version of an apology that gives any of that back. What does the state owe a man for 37 years? Michael Rhynes has put a number on it. In 2025, he filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Rochester, its police, the county, and the district attorney's office, $200 million. For a case he says was built on fabricated evidence and testimony the system knew how to manufacture. Whatever a court eventually decides that case is worth, it is worth saying plainly what happened. This was not a near miss. It was not a hard call that broke the wrong way. A prosecutor said the evidence wasn't there. A judge sent it to trial anyway, and the machine produced a guilty verdict out of 2 jailhouse informants, who would later admit they were told what to say. Every safeguard that was supposed to stop this did the opposite. The system did not fail to catch the mistake. The system made it. And there is one more cost easy to lose at the end of a story about an innocent man set free. Rico Ferrari and Robert Hurysz are still dead. Someone walked into that bar in 1984 and killed them, and that someone has never been caught. For 37 years, the case was closed. The state of New York believed it had the killer. It had a name, a verdict, a man behind bars, so no one was out looking for anyone else. Every year Michael Rhynes spent in Attica was a year the real killer spent free, protected by the certainty that the wrong man had already paid for it. When his conviction was thrown out, it did not just free an innocent man. It reopened a double murder that had been quietly buried under his name for nearly 4 decades. 2 families never got the right answer because the system was satisfied with the wrong one. The case of Michael Rhynes is often told as a story with a happy ending. A man wronged and finally freed. And he was freed. After 37 years, he walked out into a world that had moved on without him, and that is worth something. But strip the relief away and look at what is actually underneath it. A man told the truth for 37 years and was not believed. 2 men lied for a few minutes and were. The difference between freedom and a cell turned out to be nothing more than which voices a courtroom decided to trust. Michael Rhynes got his name back. Rico Ferrari and Robert Hurysz are still waiting for theirs to mean something. And somewhere out there, the people who actually walked into that bar in 1984 have spent 40 years knowing the most important thing about this case, that the man who paid for it was never the man who did it. The file is open again. The only people who could close it have never had to say a word.